Hey guys, welcome back to the podcast. It's been a while. Oh my god, was it 2 years we were saying?
Bit over two.
Jesus. Okay, so I am Ben, and I am joined by Greg,
Hello, howdy doody.
and we have someone different. We have Dan with us now.
Hello.
Say hi, Dan.
We're taking his podcast virginity.
Yeah, it's a big moment.
Yeah, it hurts.
You'll get used to it.
Yeah, it becomes a bit easier with time. Okay, so we don't really have like a set kind of plan for this podcast. We used to do news and stuff, but we figured we'd just discuss things as fellow gamers.
Ugh.
I know, socializing and such.
Oh god. Oh no, where's the structure? I need something to rebel up against.
No, not this
I'm
time.
sure you'll manage.
All right,
Gosh.
so why don't we jump in? Greg kindly volunteered to be first to discuss what's he been playing.
Oh. Yeah, so gosh. So the climate of video games has changed somewhat since 2016.
Oh yeah.
I have been playing The Outer Worlds, which is a videoed game made by a lot of the same people that made Fallout New Vegas. And people are all like, this is the new Fallout New Vegas. And some people have gone as far to say that it eclipses Fallout New Vegas. And I'm enjoying it. I'm about 5 to 10 hours in. I wouldn't say, out of my experience, that it eclipses New Vegas, but I'm a huge Fallout fan, so I guess I'm going to be somewhat biased. But Outer Worlds is a bit like somewhere between Fallout New Vegas and Mass Effect. Like the approach to companions and the approach to environments and worlds and stuff. It's sort of like Mass Effect in that, you have this crew and you go to different places and they're all supposed to be somewhat different or whatever. But it's got the Fallout New Vegas sort of approach to skilling up a character and that sort of thing, which people like. I myself am actually finding it maybe not as good as everyone's saying. I think it might be a bit overhyped. But then I've only played 5 to 10 hours of it. So what do I know? I would say it's got some drawbacks, even in the form of its combat, like the gunplay. I actually find is kind of I find the enemies aren't very good at being interesting or distinguishable. And I find, I'm also playing it on an original Xbox One, which on it runs like shit. So that isn't helping my experience. I don't know if either of you two will have thoughts on the Outer Worlds to contribute.
Only faults I've had is that I wanted it. I never got around to getting it. But yeah, my impression was essentially like, it's New Vegas in space. And that's
more colours.
Yeah, that's all I've seen of it. When I found out Obsidian were involved in it, were developing it, that made me very, very happy.
Sure. They're talented heroes. Did you like Fallout New Vegas?
Fallout New Vegas, as much as it's an unpopular opinion, was my favourite one in the series.
Oh, it's not it's the popular opinion at the moment. The internet goes through phases of how they feel about these.
They must have changed since I last voiced my opinion.
Yeah, it used to be looked upon as the disgruntled, weird child of Fallout. But after Fallout 4 came out, people decided that Fallout New Vegas was the best one, and they now retrospectively hated Fallout 3. It's interesting.
Oh, Dan.
See, you backed me into a corner for my first kind of discussion because I don't like Fallout and never have.
Oh,
that's the true unpopular opinion.
Oh, can we eject him? Can we eject him from the podcast?
He lasted all of 5 minutes.
So thanks, guys.
What's your gripe? Not gripe. Gripe's the wrong word. But what is it you don't like?
Yeah, what's your gripe? What's your gripe?
I don't know. I've tried to play 3 and I tried New Vegas as well, and I just find them very overwhelming and unstructured. which is the same reason. Again, just to cement my hatred, it's the same reason I don't like Elder Scrolls or Skyrim. It's very. I just feel like I could walk around and I'm 15 hours in and I haven't done anything. I haven't gone anywhere and I don't feel like I've made any progress, and it just kind of put me off. And it only takes being put off for the sort of 1 or 2 games, and then you kind of don't bother with the franchise.
Yeah, it can be. Fallout can be very fetch questy. That's why I wasn't a massive fan of Fallout 4. But I enjoyed 3 and New Vegas. I felt that even though there was a lot to do, it all intertwined very nicely.
I think it started with Oblivion. That was the first one I played, and I just kind of didn't really know what was going on with it, and I just felt like I wasn't making any progress, so it kind of fell beyond the wayside. And then someone introduced me to Fallout, and I started playing that, and I just felt like it was very similar. I had the same kind of vibe with it, and it just didn't gel with me really, which is why I steered clear of Outer Worlds, because it from the research I did and watching videos and stuff, it looked very similar. It looks good, don't get me wrong, it does look quite interesting, but the gameplay is very similar to a style that I don't really get on with.
That's fair. Yeah. That's fair.
Lemon in the eyes, Dan. Giving me something to cry about. Only a few minutes in, my goodness. What an impressive start.
Dan's coming out swinging.
Man, no, you know what? I can't fault you, and you're not the first person that I've met to have these opinions. Sometimes it's all about what we enjoy in games, and some people open world, and you're right in that they are open world and that they are unstructured to an extent, to a large extent even. And to some people that just turns them right off, and they're just sitting there like, what am I even supposed to be doing? I don't care. And they're always gonna, all of the sort of Bethesda of Obsidian style RPGs will always be like, they'll start you off with some central quest of go find your dad, go find your son, go deal with the Oblivion crisis, that sort of thing. But that's like a small, you'll be nudged out of the door. But then, like, really, but what's over there, though? And like, this is an interesting city, and I want to talk to this lusty barmaid and find out what's going on in her life. Oh, not very much, fair enough. That sort of thing. And I like that. To me, that's very fun. Part of my problem with Outer Worlds is I'm struggling to find myself invested and interested enough in the world to stop in at all the bars and everything, because I just turn up. Everyone I talk to, they're just like, oh hi, yeah, the corporation is bad, but I like it because I'm brainwashed. Okay, cool. Anything else to say? Yeah, if I'll pay you money to do dodgy things for my corporation, and I'll be like, okay, maybe I'll see you never again. Whereas in Fallout and Elder Scrolls, I really like the worlds. And Outer Worlds could grow on me, and a year from now I could love it even more than them, though I wouldn't count on it. It's totally understandable. The whole unstructured, I've done some stuff, but I don't even know what I'm doing now sort of thing can feel like just unrewarding, and you're just going to drop it and do another thing, which is that's cool, Dan. That's cool.
But the thing is, this. So just to clarify, because it now makes it sound like all I play is Angry Birds, and that's all that holds my focus.
Which is true, is it not? That's true.
It is not. The thing is, I've finished many JRPGs, MMOs. I must have spent, about 300 hours on Neverwinter. I don't dislike open world games. The Witcher, I think I put 200 hours into that. I don't dislike that. There's something about Fallout and Elder Scrolls that I just don't click with. I don't know what it is. I think maybe there's more to it, but I've never really investigated. So, I mean, they're one game every kind of 40 years, aren't they? So I don't have to worry too much.
I mean, it's Like I find myself if I'm playing Fallout, I find that I always have to kind of compartmentalize the map. Like when I look at the map as a whole, it's very daunting, and I think, oh god, I don't want. But so I find myself just kind of like I'll focus on this little eighth section here, and I'll do all of the stuff here, and then I'll kind of branch out from there. Because if you take it in as a whole, it is a bit much sometimes.
Maybe that's it. I mean, when you come to things like GTA, The Witcher, things like that, you tend to only be given a snippet of the map to start with, and then due to a bridge opening or, you know, some sort of exploration or climbing a tower with something like Far Cry, you kind of get more of the map as you progress. And maybe it's just because with Fallout or Oblivion, if I remember rightly, you're kind of just thrown in and given everything. Maybe it was just a bit of an overload, and maybe that's why I don't click with it.
They do very much kind of like you wake up or whatever, and it's very much like, oh, you can walk, you can talk, cool, kick you out the door, off you go. There's a big bad world.
Yeah,
it's interesting to me that especially the thing about the MMOs, because I find them. I almost never enjoy MMOs. If I do, it's because they are Star Trek, and even then I can't last very long. I find they're tough to deal with because I find them too unstructured.
Yeah,
strange thing, isn't it?
I think, I mean, Neverwinter's the main MMO because I'm not. I've never really been a PC gamer, just because I've never really had a decent enough PC, and obviously Neverwinter came to consoles, and I think with that was. You could go to an area with a task, but you physically couldn't do other tasks in that area because the enemies would be too difficult. You wouldn't be able to progress onto something else until you were stronger. So even though they're kind of unstructured in a way, you are limited to what you can do. So it kind of forces a structure on you.
Yeah. It's
Does
like
that make
less
sense?
like it's more subtly structured rather than like something else.
Yeah, like it's just like, well, we'll give you this huge map, but actually when you start playing and delve into it a little bit, you can't actually access it all, and you can't actually do it all from the off. So I suppose you are kind of given a structure without it being particularly obvious.
Yeah, that makes sense. That's fair. Okay.
That is fair.
Well, what have you been playing at the minute, Dan?
Where to begin?
Where to begin?
Dan is a man of many games.
Yeah,
Well-
for the audience that don't know, on his Instagram, I look at this in awe. I just see, have completed this entire game. Lol, took me a couple of hours. Got 100%. I'm so cool, kids. I'm off to my next AAA game, which I will play in 3 minutes. Like, it's constant. It's this barrage of the fact. I'm so impressed by the fact that you have this discipline to complete all of these different games, which is why you're such a valuable cast member, because you've actually played all these fucking games.
I'm not sure that it's disciplined. It's more OCD not letting me play a game and not finishing at least the story. And I am, as much as my Instagram may look like I'm an amazing gamer, I'm actually horrendous at uploading screenshots and things. So quite often it'll be, look, here are 8 games that it looks like I've finished in a fortnight, when actually it's been 4 months, but I just haven't been asked to actually put any pictures on Instagram.
Yeah, there's very much a case of like, oh crap, here's 3 months worth of completed games spammed into a day.
Well, it happened the other day. I got Pokemon a day early, and I played it for a fair amount, and I thought, let's get these screenshots up today because it's a day early, and then saw kind of 9 games from the last 3 or 4 months that I haven't actually uploaded. So it
I
kind
haven't
of.
seen these. I'm gonna look at your screenshots.
Say it again.
I'm gonna look at your screenshots. I want to get some Dan in my life. Hang on. See what I think of them. Maybe the audience will look too. Maybe they won't. I don't know. I can't see any Pokemon in here.
I think it was on Twitter. I don't think it was on Instagram.
They start on Twitter because I'm technologically stunted and I only know how to upload them to Twitter, and then I have to take them off there and put them on other platforms.
All right, so So what's been memorable? What's like stood out that you've been playing?
Uh, okay, so there's kind of 4 games this month, 2 of which I haven't had a chance to play yet, which are Death Stranding and Shenmue, because I have a backlog. I've recently finished Luigi's Mansion, which I thoroughly enjoyed. And as you know, I am trawling through Pokemon at the moment. So, what do you want to know about?
Tell me more about Luigi's Mansion, because Ellie, she found this post of somebody saying like, "Oh, my perfect Christmas Eve is gonna be like in pajamas playing board games," and Ellie was like, "Oh my God, we're gonna get into pajamas and we're gonna buy Luigi's Mansion free and we're gonna play Luigi's Mansion free on Christmas Eve and go into Christmas that way." And I was like, okay, because I mean, I wanted the game anyway, but yeah, I want to know what I'm getting into. From what I've seen or what I remember of 1 and 2, like they're all amazing games.
Yeah, they're fantastic, and it really surprises me that they've only made 3 in kind of 20 years. I've never really understood that. I think it's the attention to detail that they go into. So on the surface, it just looks like, okay, you're Luigi, you have a vacuum cleaner, and you go around sucking up ghosts. Okay, that's it. But it's not. It's more. It's kind of part hidden object game. You have to really examine the environment you're in and see what can be moved, what can be changed, what can be sucked and blown, and whatever.
I wonder about that a lot when I'm around you, actually, Dan.
Yeah, I kind of, as soon as I started saying that, I thought there's no other way of wording this. And no way that Greg's not going to comment. So,
For sure.
yes, sucking and blowing aside, there's the hidden object kind of side of it, and then it's also puzzles. So every floor has 6 gems that you can collect, and they are not kind of obvious, and you really do have to kind of pick the environments apart in order to find the secrets. And yeah, it was kind of nice to play a game like that. I think so often a lot of effort and time is put into environments, and especially with things like Mario or platformers, and you just kind of tend to speed through them just to get from A to B. But to actually kind of have to stop and really look at what's going on around you, I found it quite refreshing.
I've got a question, actually. Oh, no,
go on.
You go.
No, I was going to ask about Guigi, because I was kind of interested in how that mechanic works.
Okay. Well, so Guigi is basically, well, kind of horrific when you actually look at it on the surface. You create him out of your backpack, and then Luigi kind of, his head drops, and then you control like a flubber version of yourself. But quite often you know, there's certain bosses that you might have to create a Guigi and let the boss eat it in order for you to be able to hit a weak point. And it's kind of, he's very expendable. A couple of times I felt a little bit sorry for him. But he's a co-op mechanic. So if you are playing with 2 characters, one of you takes control of Luigi and one takes control of Guigi.
Oh, okay.
If you're playing on your own, you can swap between them by clicking the stick. So it might be that it takes 2 of you to move an item. So you would move Luigi, start him vacuuming the item, and then switch to the other, to Guigi, and Luigi will kind of stay doing whatever you left him doing, and then you can both lift it together. I haven't actually played the co-op, so it'd be interesting to see. I don't know if you'd be able to control them simultaneously or whether it would be one at a time. So when you actually do that, I wouldn't mind finding out. But yeah, it's interesting. It adds kind of another element to the game that the other 2 didn't have. And I mean, anything Nintendo, it's been thoroughly thought out, and it does work really well.
Yeah, I just think they must have like the best track record in terms of like sort of execution of their ideas and stuff like that. Like,
yeah, I think so. And I think in terms of their franchises, I mean, when you look at long-running franchises like Resident Evil, Final Fantasy, that kind of thing, there's kind of blips. Whereas when you look at Nintendo's franchises, they're very strong. They always seem to stay very strong.
So,
Gotta
my
say, what was Greg
question,
going to ask?
Yes.
so Luigi. So I don't know Nintendo very well, but Luigi, right? How can he afford this mansion on a plumber's salary?
So he is invited to said mansion. It's not actually his.
Right. So the game is called Luigi's Mansion, but that's
he doesn't-
just false. Right. Got it.
Yeah,
Lies from
exactly.
Nintendo once again.
He doesn't own any of the mansions in any of the games, and in each one he is tricked to visiting, and
What an idiot.
usually Mario or somebody he cares for gets kidnapped, and then it's up to him to... He's not the smartest of lead characters.
It doesn't sound like he is. No, it sounds like he's making the same mistake again and again.
It's like the Nintendo version of the Taken franchise, isn't it?
It is, apart from the fact that Luigi's not a terrorist, which is kind of what the daughter in Taken is, just going to other countries and just blowing everyone up, but it's fine.
Well, I mean, we don't know Luigi's past that well. We know what he is now. We know he's a plumber. We know he knows about the color green, but we don't really know anything else about him.
It's a valid point.
You don't really find a lot out, other than the fact that he has dealt with this on 3 separate occasions and is still terrified by very cute-looking ghosts. I think the first thought that went through my head when a ghost jumped out and he froze up was, okay, 20 years, 3 games, still a pussy. So
they've changed the mechanic, haven't they, a little bit? You know, the mechanic for when you fight the ghosts. From what I've seen in the trailers, you have to kind of throw them around a bit more. And
yeah, I mean, there was a bit of that in the other games, but they've kind of changed. They changed the enemies slightly anyway, so it might be that you have to get to a certain side of an enemy. It might have to be that they've got sunglasses on, so you have to remove them from the face before you can stun them. So they've, just with any game, they've kind of mixed up the mechanics a bit, because just being able to vacuum up ghosts, it would be a bit dull, I think. Yeah, and there's more of them, because it wasn't that long ago I played the first one for the site, because I reviewed it, didn't I, for retrospective.
Oh yeah.
I realised that there's a lot more opportunities to actually fight the ghosts. In the first one, it felt very much like once you cleared a room, it stayed cleared, whereas in this one, that's not the case. So it's set across floors. So there's, I think, 15 floors, and you retrieve the elevator buttons as you go through. So you're constantly going to varying places in this hotel, and every floor's kind of got a theme. So yeah, it's a vast improvement, if I had to say. And it's massive. I felt like it took me ages.
Okay, so we're going to talk a little bit more about Pokemon later on. But what's been your views of Pokemon? Because you said earlier that you're onto like the final challenge in terms of the story. Like, have you enjoyed it?
I have. It kind of is very much bias, as the same way Greg would be with Fallout. Pokemon and Zelda have always been my favourite franchises, and from playing the first one back in the 90s, I've always wanted kind of the way I said it in my head as a kid was like a 3D Pokemon, and then they did that for X and Y, and it still wasn't quite what I meant. I wanted kind of what felt like a full kind of RPG, and I feel like that's what they've done. I mean, it's limited. It's not perhaps as big as people think it is, but it's still very well executed, in my opinion.
Yeah, I heard people kind of complaining that it was marketed as like a free roam world, but there are actually a lot of obstacles to kind of stop you going in
Yeah.
set places.
That was lies.
Once again, lies by Nintendo. Started with Luigi having a mansion, working their way down.
So it's not truly free roam.
No, it isn't. So how can I explain it? So I thought it was free roam as well. So anyone who's played Pokemon, you know that it's going to be. You start in a town, you have your route that will get you to the next kind of obstacle, whatever that may be.
Which starter did you have before you continue?
Fire type, as always.
Oh yeah, can you? How good was it though? Was it like a cool one?
It
Did
was
it do jumps?
It was a bunny rabbit.
That's nice. That's cool.
It was weird. It started off as like a fire bunny, and I thought that's kind of cool. And then the second evolution was kind of a ninja fire bunny, and I was like, okay, I'm liking the direction this is going in. And then the third iteration was a footballer fire bunny, and I don't really know how they got from A to B to C, to be honest.
Yeah, I was kind of disappointed because I mean, straight off the bat when I saw the free starter Pokemon, instantly I was like, I want the monkey, the grass type, straight away. And then recently I saw his final evolution, and I was like, oh no.
What's it called? What's the final evolution of the grass one called?
I don't know what it's called, but it is essentially, so he goes from having I can't remember the name of the stick. The stick you use in what's the drum game? The Japanese drum game.
Oh, Taiko.
Yes. He has one of those, and then he evolves into a slightly larger monkey who has 2 of these Taiko sticks. And then the final evolution, he has like some weird braided Super Saiyan 2 long-ass ponytail with a giant drum, and he's just kind of standing there like, this is my drum.
But at least it's themed. At least he's a drummer throughout. He doesn't go from bunny to ninja to footballer.
That's very true.
That was pretty much my career progression when I was a child. That's what I wanted to see my life be.
What stage are you at now?
I wouldn't ask questions you're not ready for the answers. Oh, you're right. To be fair, this Gorilla Boom is crap. I had a really cool dream of what it actually looked like in my head last night, which was actually, it was grass and steel type, and it was this cool, like, sworded warrior, like, with a suit of armor and everything.
Oh, you're looking
And
at
I sort of-
Grookey? Like
Yeah, Grookey's evolution. It's called Rillaboom. I had a dream of a much better looking Pokemon than this.
Yeah, I need to look up Score Bunny evolution very quickly.
Yeah, have a look and tell me what you think, and tell me how they're linked.
Dear.
If I may have missed something.
School Bunny Score.
Yeah, does, I mean, what I'm seeing does not look very promising.
What's it called? Because I do some Google images, and I'm just getting all these stupid internet versions, which probably look better than the real ones.
I mean, I'm on Polygon, so
Score Bunny. The last one is Cinder Ace. Is the one that I've got at the moment.
Cinder Ace. Oh my!
I can't remember the middle one. No one remembers the middle one.
That's fine. Cinder Ace. I'll have a look at that.
Oh dear Lord!
That's not very good, actually.
Oh dear.
And one of his moves, he literally volleys a stone until it sets on fire and then punts it at them.
That's pretty good.
It's a fun move, but it's. I mean, how do we get there from Fire Bunny?
I'm just looking at Sobble evolution to see if Sobbles is any better.
Oh, the second one's an emo with a side fringe.
No, it's not.
I fought him earlier. Yes, Garrett, I promise.
No.
Sobble,
it's called.
Yeah, but what's its evolution? Because again, I'm looking at a blue Charizard, and I'm pretty confident it's not that. Google Images is no use. Google is rubbish when it comes to Pokemon.
Type in Sobble evolution on Google and then look at the Polygon article.
Okay.
Oh wow, it is purely an emo. It evolves into Drizzile, and it literally says here an emo-looking lizard.
There's a Sobble. Oh yes, I love the fringe.
Yeah, the fringe is all very much.
Oh god, I don't care about your cookies. I want to look at the last evolution. Damn it.
So, what's the last evolution?
I haven't met that one. Obviously, because my rival always picks the weaker class to the one that you've got, he has the grass class.
Okay, it's called Interlon.
Interlon, yeah.
Interlon, alright. I'm Googling that.
Yeah.
Give me Interlon.
Oh, wow.
Wow.
It turns into, do you remember Gex the Gecko, the PS1 game? Gex?
Yes.
So vaguely.
It looks like a water type version of Gex the Gecko. It's very bad.
I think I quite like Interlon. I think I might pick water for the first time.
Oh, the skinny. Yeah, I see him.
Yeah.
Kind of praying mantis-esque gecko type. Right.
Yeah, Interlon's a little.
It looks the best out of the 3 final evolutions.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm just biased. I always pick fire type. I don't know why. I think it's because I read back in the 90s when I had red and blue that fire type is the slightly harder route to take because of the way that the gyms are ordered.
Yeah.
And I kind of have always picked that just because I find that most of the time you can pretty much spam one move with your head Pokemon and get right through to the end.
Yeah, well, in the first games, the rock type was the first gym, wasn't it? So
yes, that
fire was like
you're
a
right.
bad matchup. Because I used to go and catch. I used to just run around until I caught a Mankey, and then I'd train it to do low kick, and then because I was playing Pokemon Yellow, so I was screwed. All right.
Yeah,
Should we talk what I've been playing?
Before we move on, just a quick heads up.
Ooh.
For those searching Inteleon in the internet, do not confuse the water evolution of the Pokemon with the Swedish company Inteleon.
There's a Swedish company?
There is. I've got a little picture of a man looking happy with it. So, that's an easy mistake to make. We all sometimes think of Swedish companies when we think of our Pokemon. So, there you go. Just a PSA. The audience is warned. Right, yeah. Ben, tell us what you've been playing.
Before you move on, Ben, do you want me to tell you how much Nintendo have lied when we go back to Pokemon later?
Oh yes, please. I actually, so I'm very much looking forward to getting Pokemon. Despite some of the stuff I've heard, I do want to play the new installment, but I am slowly being put more and more off. So please put the final nail in that coffin and save me 50 quid.
No, because I need you to buy it because I need you to get the one I haven't got to give me the Pokemon I need.
Yeah, you just want to use me to finish your Pokedex.
Exactly.
So I will buy it, and then you and me can have a battle.
True Pokemon
I don't know
style.
when I'll buy it. No idea when I buy it. I don't even own a Switch, but at some point, it's going to be great. You'll have a little chap on my Pokemon.
Oh. All right. So recently, I've been playing 3 games recently, if you can believe it.
Mm.
So the first game that I was playing was a game called Greedfall. It was developed by a studio I've never heard of before called Spiders, but I'm familiar with the publisher. Yes, I know. It was like developed by Spiders. I was like, wait, as in like the little animal, or as in like?
It was made by little spiders just on a computer. It's by luck.
But it's published by Focus Home, who do some other games. They do The Surge 2, which Dan played and quite enjoyed.
I did.
They done Call of Cthulhu, which I really enjoyed. But Greedfall was interesting. Yes. It was weird. It was a game that, so essentially it is, we won't beat around the bush. It's basically about the colonization of a new island. So essentially there's this new island that's been found, and it's believed that the island will be the home to the cure of a plague that's plaguing this country. And you play as the cousin to the new governor of the capital of the island. And so you're basically there to oversee political issues. So you're there to keep the neighboring nations happy on the island, because you kind of have like New Serene is the main capital city, and then there are like almost countries in the island.
How big is this island?
It is a rather big map. It is a rather big map. But you basically, your job is essentially to keep everybody happy. You have to keep the natives happy, even though the people who have moved onto their island are trying to kill them. You have to keep the people who are moving onto the island happy, even though they want the natives gone, and find a cure for this plague. And it's all. There was lots of lore, which was very nice to kind of get your teeth into, because you had all these different factions. You had like Nauts who were sailors, and then it appeared that there were like ancient symbols drawn by the Nauts, and you had to link it. But the story didn't feel like it went anywhere. You know, like when I read the review, I was about 17 hours into the game. It's about a 40-hour campaign. And at that point, I didn't feel like anything had happened. You know,
Like Fallout, just saying.
No, it's very. So the Fallout's different, because to me, with Fallout, you kind of have small stories that get finished as you go through the game. But with this, there was never really a set finish. So, for instance, the native that's one of your companions, her mother was kidnapped. So you had to find her mother. You had to help one of the sailors find out where he came from. You had about 6 companions, each who had their own companion quests that you had to do, as well as side quests, as well as a quest for the natives, and as well as a quest for each of the 2 neighbouring nations. And so it's like there was tons of gameplay, but nothing was happening. Like I did enjoy it, but I don't know if I'll ever finish it. You know, one of those games. Dan probably doesn't, but
Yeah, no, I really don't.
I'm sure Greg knows where I'm coming from. Like one of those games that you want to finish, but it just doesn't feel worth putting your hours into.
Yeah.
So yeah, like I said, 17 hours and nothing had really happened. I feel like they could have condensed it down. They created this big world with lots of lore, and I'm sure if you're willing to sit through and have the patience to finish it, I'm sure it will all pay off. But yeah, it didn't. It's still a good game. I still recommend playing it if you can get it cheap. I wouldn't pay full price for it.
What sort of gameplay is it?
So it's very typical RPG. You essentially. So the way it works is you pick a class, you pick like 3 classes at the beginning, and they each award you with different things. So one allows you to use one-handed weapons, one allows you to use magic, one allows you to use two-handed weapons. And then from there you have 3 different skill trees. So one skill tree is to do with your traits, like your charisma and all of that stuff. Another one is to do with like endurance, strength, and then another one is to do with the actual. So sorry, you have one that's like strength, endurance, agility. One is to do with lock picking and other sort of tactics, and then the third one is sort of a skill tree for your combat abilities. So it allows you to use stronger weapons or use more powerful guns and stuff like that. So you have to build up each of these different skill trees. The only cool feature was they had memory crystals, so they're very hard to come by. But what you could do is just like even 18 hours into the game, you could use a memory crystal, and it would essentially factory reset your character, but keep your skill points. So you could reassign your skill points mid-game.
Okay.
So that was a really cool feature. But yeah, the combat was really, really lacking. You had like light attack, heavy attack, dodge, and then you could set traps and stuff like that. But the AI, it wasn't intelligent enough for what they were trying to do.
Oh, I hate that when they give you this massive kind of. You can do all these different things, and then you just get these kind of minions that run straight at you.
It was exactly that. So there was a part of the game where it's not a major spoiler, but there was a part of the game where essentially you perform a ritual to summon this demon that's kind of plaguing the area, and then you defeat the demon to save the area. And I was like, wow, this thing is massive. This thing was like a good 8 or 9 feet tall. But it just made a beeline for me. So I would put down traps as it was running at me. I would inflict damage to it, and then it would always have the same moveset. As soon as you inflicted damage, it would swing its arm left, swing its arm right, and then try and grab somebody. But if they were too far away, it would fall onto the floor. And then while it was on the floor, you would attack it, and then it would get up. You would move back, and it would run at you again, and you'd repeat. And it was like, it's supposed to be this epic boss battle, and I just found myself being really bored.
Yeah.
Like there was no, it had like, it gave you the option to, what was nice is it gave you the option, so magic was given to you through the use of rings, so you had to equip the ring as a weapon, and that allowed you to use magic. So you could press RB to switch between 2 weapons, so you could use magic for range attack, and then press RB and switch to close range sword, which was a nice, there was so many promising features in terms of the combat, but the AI just doesn't deliver on the combat style. Like, it makes it feel like it's going to be this Dark Souls Bloodborne-y experience, when in reality it's not, which kind of sucked.
So basically, it was a cool premise with some cool ideas, but
Yeah.
the delivery wasn't necessarily where you wanted it to be.
Yeah, I feel like if they'd condensed it down, and instead of going for this massive 40-hour campaign, they could have condensed it into like sort of 20 hours or so, or like even just improve the combat. There's so much combat in the game, it happens so frequently that even if the combat was a bit better, that it probably would have kept my attention a lot more. So then we played that, and then we played a game called Simulacra. That's currently, I'm reviewing that in a minute. I've done 1 playthrough, but I'm going to do a couple more because it's not due till the 3rd of December. But it was a game that came out on PC a couple of years back, and it
sounds like a medication.
Yeah,
it sounds like something to stop you shitting too much.
Yeah, it does have a definite a weird name, yeah, but it's essentially like an FMV. So it's all done in the style of a phone. So you find somebody's phone, and you discover that this person has gone missing, and then you essentially use the contacts on their phone as well as other apps to find out where they are. It's very clever. So you can, like, you'll be talking, for instance, she has a boyfriend, Greg, and you can message the boyfriend, and you kind of have to explain, like, Anna's missing, I'm trying to find her, and then you have to convince him that you haven't done anything, and then it will be like, oh, we need to access, they recently broke up, so you have to access the in-game version of Tinder because she was talking to somebody. But Tinder is password protected, and the secret to the password is the date of her cat's birthday. So then you have to go into her gallery and look through her pictures, and there's a picture of her with her cat saying happy birthday, and then you check the properties of the picture, and you're like, oh, it's the 23rd of January, and like, it's very clever the way they've done it. The only thing that annoys me is it's very jump scare reliant. It's supposed to be like a horror FMV, and there's no real sense of atmosphere in terms of horror. It's more a case of like almost as if the phone has a virus, so things will pop up as you're doing stuff and kind of jump scare you that way, which I'm not a big fan of. I've said time and time again, I'm not a massive fan of jump scares. They always feel very cheap to me when they're not done properly.
Yeah.
It's a good game, and I want to do another playthrough because there are a couple of alternate endings. So I want to play through those. If I'm getting into FMVs a lot, especially the guys who make it Wells Interactive. They done a couple of they done the Bunker, which was very good.
The Bunker, yeah, I've played the Bunker.
Yeah, and they done the Late Shift. Late Shift was another good one.
Yeah.
But yeah, like I'm getting into FMVs. I like that kind of style at the minute because it's just something a little bit different. So yeah, I'll report back soon. But first impressions are it's good. Other than the jump scares.
Well, thanks for the update on Simulacra,
mate. Honestly, check it out. If you're into FMV games, it is very good. But FMVs aren't everyone's cup of tea.
You should
Yeah,
play
once-
Night Trap.
Play what? Night Trap.
No, have you never heard of Night Trap? It was like
that's the one from the 90s, isn't it?
Oh,
yeah,
it does sound familiar actually. Now you say that, yeah.
oh,
Yeah.
Is it
it
like
was
you kind of
Politicians hated it.
there's like an apartment block and you have to switch from place? Am I thinking of a different one? Let me
I
look up Night
don't
Trap.
think all I know about it is things that people have said, and I've seen some clips of it. But as I understood it, it's basically a full motion, like FMV, like full motion picture video game where they'll have like real actors doing stuff, and there's like a murderer in a house or something, and the acting's
Yes.
horrific. And
yeah, it is. It had I can't think of her name. She was in. Oh, it was an actress that was famous in the 80s, and it was so kind of hammy and cheesy and just like a terrible film where you got to make the odd decision. You should Google it and watch the videos. It's
I'm looking at it. Game Grumps, like a channel I watch, like a Let's Play channel. They've done a playthrough of it. Now I see the screenshots and stuff. It looks familiar.
yeah,
If you're-
it's great and terrible all at the same time.
All right, let's not put off the inevitable. The last game I've been playing is Death Stranding.
I knew he was gonna say that.
Ooh, baby.
Ooh.
Ooh, baby.
Okay, so to preface this for the audience who may not have been here for 2.5 years ago, Ben is really into Hideo Kojima and his design and his games and his whole shtick, who is, of course, the creator of Death Stranding, which is his first independent creative stride into the video game world, finally showcasing what he's all about. Ben, tell us about Death Stranding and the walking and the carrying.
So,
UPS.
yes, it is essentially a UPS simulator. But there is so much more to it.
Norman Reedus as well, yeah.
Yeah, Norman Reedus, and
He's
Mads
also there with his
Mikkelsen.
beard.
You can make him do a poo.
You can make him do a poo. Troy Baker's in it.
way!
Yeah,
Norman Reedus poo?
yeah. You can. So you have like this private room when you go to when you do the drop-offs at the big facilities, and you can take a shower. And then he kind of gets in the shower and you see his ass, and then he gets out and he looks at the camera and winks.
What the fuck?
Tell me what you want to know. I don't want to spoil too much, but
It sort of sounds like how when George Lucas was making the first Phantom Menace, and like no one wanted to sort of meddle with his creative process because wow, he's so good. He made the last Star Wars films, so no one really told him no. And then this time, Hideo Kojima, no one told him no, and he sort of ended up making something really bizarre that wasn't necessarily good. I've never played it myself, and I've got a story about it to tell in a bit.
so
But it's yeah.
The main-
What do you think of it?
I love it.
You love it.
I love it.
That's on the record now.
Yeah, I kind of so it's very hard to explain. If you look at it on the surface level, yes, it is a game about walking and delivering cargo.
Yeah.
But there's a bigger story to it if you're willing to kind of sit through the cutscenes, as is the way of Hideo Kojima.
Mhm.
So it's to do with this big event that happened called the Death Stranding, that was essentially the mixing of the world of the living and the world of the dead. So the BTs are the enemies in the game, and the BTs are essentially the souls or the ghosts of people in the world of the dead. And their sole purpose is basically to drag you to the beach, which is basically limbo is the easiest way to explain it. The beach is kind of the division between the world of the living and the world of the dead. And
Sounds like a British beach.
yeah, it is very much about. So imagine America with no power network. So everyone is kind of in isolated pockets of the country, and the game is about going around and connecting people to this network, which is done by a big corporation called UCA, which is the United Cities of America. It's basically the replacement of the USA. And so you kind of bring people into this new age where they're connected to everybody, and they can survey where the BTs are and can trade supplies with one another, and you're basically rebuilding America after this big cataclysmic event. So if you're willing to sit through it, there is a big story, but a lot of people, yeah, they're like, oh, it's a delivery simulator.
Well, every game that starts with the sort of warning of if you're willing to sit through it is going to be a great game, inevitably. I have no opinions on it. I've only heard what people have said about it and stuff. It doesn't. I was actually kind of interested in getting it until I heard about what it's actually like, and then I thought maybe this is one for when it joins the Game Pass in 2021.
So it's the thing I like about it is that it's kind of oddly relaxing in a weird way. So you are essentially carrying car. I mean, one of the drops I did was something like just under 6 kilometers I had to walk. And you kind of go over all different types of terrain, and there's lots of mechanics that are very cool to do. So like you'll need to get from A to B, and so you can use like a climbing pole, like an anchor that you stick in the top of a mountain, and you can go down the side of a mountain, and you can put ladders across crevices, and then it's essentially like there are servers, so all of the players in your server will have access to whatever you leave in the world. So if you leave a ladder across the gap, if I left the ladder across the gap, say, Dan can come along a couple of weeks later and use that ladder to pass that gap. And you can do other things, like you can build literal like metal bridges that cross rivers and stuff, and it's hard to explain the appeal of Death
Yeah, can you
Stranding.
see how this sounds?
I know, it's so hard to see the appeal of Death Stranding without playing
You
it.
can have a ladder and climb it, and then maybe someone else will also
It's
climb it.
about the journey, Greg.
And they like your ladder, so you get little thumbs up if they like your ladder.
That's an interesting aspect that I'm trying to work out. I'm trying to work out if it's supposed to be like a piss take of the modern world, like everybody liking one another. Because in the game, literally, you get liked when you drop cargo off. You get likes based on how far you travelled, the condition of the cargo, and all of these other aspects. And then the more likes you get, the more reputable you become, and the more trusted you become as a courier. And that's literally it.
So it's like Deliveroo.
Essentially. I did fight my first boss today, shortly before we began this campaign, before we began this podcast. Not big on the boss battles, I would admit that.
So what's the combat like? Is that any good when is there combat, or is
There
it
is
just
combat,
like
so-
delivering faster than other people?
No. So you have these people called mules. And mules are essentially. This is why I think it's kind of supposed to be a piss take of the modern world, because mules are people who steal other people's cargo and deliver it so that they can get likes.
Right.
So essentially, you'll be traveling around, and what they have, like, when you're traveling, you can press R1, and it's like a terrain scanner that shows you areas that are difficult to climb, areas that are easier to climb, and it also tags cargo that's been dropped on the floor by other players or by other people who have been traveling through the area. And they have the same sort of thing, and what it does is it tags your cargo. So then they will come for you and essentially try and steal your cargo and take it back to their base. So there's combat in that kind of sense. You can physically fight them off, and they block your attacks, and you have to be clever about getting behind them and attacking them from behind. Or later on in the game, I unlocked these like decoy cargo packs that you get, and you can drop them on the floor, and they'll pick it up thinking it's your cargo, and essentially it like blows up and is like a decoy and does damage to them. But yeah, there's not the only big battles come from the bosses. So you how do I do this without spoilers? So the whole point in the game, there's a illness called Dooms, and Dooms affect people and then basically kind of gives them superpowers in a way and allows them to connect with the world of the dead. And there is a main boss called Higgs who has very, very late onset Dooms and is very connected and can essentially summon forth monsters from the world of the dead to attack you in the world of the living. If that
Right.
makes sense.
Of
So
course.
That makes so much sense. Yeah, I'm completely following this.
it's as ludicrous and ridiculous as it sounds, and I love it, except for the boss combat.
I put maybe 3 hours in, and every time I thought that there was maybe 1% of one of my questions being answered, I got like 9 more. I love Kojima games as well. I mean, not to the extent of Ben, like he doesn't have a restraining order against me.
That was never confirmed. That's still in process. Thank you.
It's still pending. I have loved pretty much everything, so I went in blind with this one. I didn't go for spoilers. I didn't watch the trailers. I just thought, okay, this is going to be great, so I'm going to buy it. And I didn't even realize it was kind of a delivery sim until I started playing it, and I must admit it's absolutely stunning. Like, you can kind of just crossing the terrain. It is absolutely beautiful, but in my couple of hours with it, I am kind of worried that I'm going to get quite bored with it. And again, I can't say that until I've actually put some time in. Maybe it's something we revisit again in a few weeks. But I don't know. I just the thought of the only thing to do is to walk from one side of a very large map to the other. It just doesn't sound particularly appealing.
So it does get a little bit better in terms of the travel. It does get better.
In what way does it get better? Do you get a pogo stick?
Now I might find one of Ben's ladders.
Yeah.
Oh, the thrill!
No,
Can
you
you
get a
imagine
bike,
you
thank
find
you.
Ben's ladder in the wild?
You get a bike. Thank you.
You get a oh fucking hell!
You get a motorbike that allows you to.
Wow.
And
You're
you can
so
fast
blessed.
travel later on in the game.
you get a mechanic which surpasses everything else that happens. That's fantastic.
I can't explain why you can fast travel without spoiling the game, but there is a reason to it.
That's fine. I'm sure that the death becomes stranded in you, and so you can use your death to appear in other places because you're not really alive. And also you've got the dooms, which also sounds like another way of saying the shits. But you've got the dooms.
I'm not digging I mean, I do like the gameplay, and like I said, it is kind of nice for me to sit down and walk through this environment, and like the music that's been picked for the game is very suiting to the game, and I like the environment.
Do you know what you could do? Is you could put some headphones in and go for a walk.
Yeah, see, now that's walking.
That's how it's feeling to me at the moment.
I'm very invested in the story. The story is like the delivery side of it is annoying because, like, for instance, the other day I was driving my bike, and my motorbike ran out of battery, so then I had to walk 2 kilometers to the destination, and then there wasn't a bike there, so then I had to walk 6 kilometers to my next destination, which isn't ideal.
It just sounds like a bad day.
Yeah.
It does. It sounds like your commute's gone wrong. That you missed the train, and oh no, the bus is.
But
overfilled, and
And the
story.
car splashed me, and I'm wet, and I'm miserable.
The story is what's keeping me invested.
All
That's
right,
the
maybe
only
now's
thing.
a good time to tell my story about Death Stranding.
Oh yes, do.
So I've never played it, audience, and friends that I'm talking to right now. I've never played it. I know almost nothing about it other than it is made by Hideo Kojima. It is called Death Stranding, and in some way involves babies. So I was at Camden Market with my wonderful fiance the other week, and we were walking around. We got some cool sausages. We picked up some Christmas presents, whatever, that sort of thing. The sort of thing you do in Camden Market, which is a place in London. If you don't live here, I suppose you might not know that. It's a nice place where there's lots of market stuff. Anyway, I'm getting distracted. So when we were there, we saw, well, this woman came up to us and was like, "Have you heard of Death Stranding?" And I was like, "No," but I had. And she's like, "Wow, it's this really great game that's coming out on the PlayStation 4. Maybe you'd like to see it." And she like gestured towards a video game experience of Death Stranding up some interesting looking stairs. And I was like, "Maybe later." And with the full intention that if we did actually have time, I would have a look. Chloe actually talked me into being more interested in it than I was. In the end, we walked past it on the way out and we were like, "Let's go up there." So we went up there and the same woman was there and she was like, she'd forgotten who I was, so she asked, "Have you heard of Death Stranding?" I was like, "Yeah, I know a bit about it. I know it's like pretty divisive. Some people loved it, some people hated it. It's made by Hideo Kojima, all that sort of thing." And she's just like, "Well, I haven't played it, and I've seen the trailer 100 times, and I'm completely hooked." And as she's telling me all these stories of how much she loves it, I'm looking around this room, which is designed to facilitate a queue of like at least 100 people. But there's about 3 people in here. She's one of them. And she's just telling me she's really going for it. She's really trying to sell me on this game. And I was like, might not get it. She's just like, "Okay, well, you can queue up for the experience and someone will be along to come and pick you up in a moment." I was like, "Okay." And so me and Chloe went and queued at the front. And Chloe was just like, am I going to be interested in this? And I was like, "I don't think either of us are." And we waited for a few moments, and then someone came along and was like, "Right, we're ready for you now to come and enjoy the experience." So we went along with them, and we followed them through some rooms and across the bridge. It was a whole thing. And we got into this room with these 2 blokes that worked for like the Death Stranding company. They were wearing these T-shirts. They were about my age, I'd say. They're mid-20s. And I started chatting away to them. Whenever I'm uncomfortable and in public situations with strangers, I find I just chat a lot.
Can confirm.
Yeah, that's true. It's pretty much what I do. And I was like, "So, how's your day going?" And this guy, suddenly taken aback by how familiar I was already being with him, was just, "Yeah, it's going good, yeah." And we started chatting about Death Stranding, and I was like making my stupid jokes and being like, "So how many deaths are typically stranded in this game?" And he was just like, "Oh yeah, a couple, ha ha ha." And I was just like, "Great, cool." And then he's just like laughing, and he told me that he wasn't paid enough for this shit. And then we moved on into the next room, which was the experience room, where we walk into this. Well, there's 2 experience rooms actually. I lie. So the first one was just this white room with lots of like screens, which we're supposed to believe are baby tubes or something, which are these babies that are like moving their little hands around and doing baby things. And then the 2 like people who were just chatty blokes a moment ago all of a sudden are actors, and they're being like, "Hello, Control, yeah, we've got some people in here, everything's gonna be fine so long as the red lights don't come on." And then the red lights come on. He's like, "Oh no, we better move you guys along." And then the babies start agitating in their little bowls, and then we move on. I didn't know anything. I didn't experience anything from that. But anyway, we move on to the next room, and there's just this dark room that sort of looks a bit like a World War I trench. And there's just this big screen, and it's just showing us like a trailer or something, like it's a person. Yeah, it's showing us the E3 trailer from like 3 years ago. And I'm just
taking a shit.
You are.
It's just Norman Reedus taking a shit on a loop.
That would have been a bit better, yeah. So it was just on the screen. It was just this. He's walking along with his shit, and like he's got the baby or something, and then there's water, and then like I'm watching this screen like with my hands at my sides, just thinking this is a really stupid waste of my time. And then all of a sudden something just sort of kicks at my foot, and then I look down and there's like another foot on my foot, like a guy stepped on my foot, and I just look to the right and it's a skeleton in armor and in army uniform stepping on my foot with a gun walking past me. I'm just like, oh, okay. There's a skeleton man who stepped on my foot. And then he's just walking around and like looking in my eyes and getting all up in my face because he's got a skeleton mask on. And then he just walks around. And his other friend is also doing that, is just walking around us. And some of the other people who were in the experience were scared. And like Chloe was just looking at me like, what the fuck are we doing? And then we left, and that was it. And I said one of your skeleton friends stepped on my foot to the people on the way out. And they were like, well, we'll go and tell them off. And I said, yes, do. And then we were gone.
That is a very bad experience.
That's everything I know about Death Stranding, apart from everything you guys have told me.
Oh, you got the full PR spiel from the woman you did there.
She was loving it.
Real.
Yeah. She was the best person to put at the door, because she clearly cared most about the game and was really excited and was really trying to talk me up about it.
They all do that, Greg.
They do, of course they do, yeah. They want me to believe that this is the gaming experience of the decade. Whereas like the other chaps were just like really underwhelmed and literally making comments about how underpaid they were all the time, until the acting began. And then they were very poorly, well, not poorly, just unenthusiastically, just like acting.
See,
I mean, like,
as much as I'm loving Death Stranding, I wouldn't put it up for a Game of the Year contender by any means.
Oh yeah.
Like, it's not. It's my kind of game, but I feel like there's more to being a Game of the Year than just like, oh yeah, there's very niche people loved this game.
Yeah.
Like, I've seen a lot of people saying that it should be Game of the Year, but I don't think it should.
From what I've played, and again, it's not very much. It's going to be a completely passable game, but if it wasn't Kojima, then nobody would be going as mad as they are.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I mean,
that's probably true. Actually,
if it wasn't Kojima, I wouldn't have picked it up.
Yeah,
a lot of people wouldn't, I don't think, and that's why people are kind of mad at it already, because it does. I don't know, when it's a big name like that, it kind of attracts fanboys, present company included. Ben,
I didn't buy the £175 collector's edition. What are you on about?
Yeah, you did, and you won't let me have it, so we're not friends. But it unfortunately it does create that kind of divide of people saying it's crap just because Kojima made it, and people saying it's amazing just because Kojima made it, and very few people actually looking at what it is as a game and if it's actually any good.
Yeah, see, I mean, I definitely, even though I love Kojima, I can definitely see both sides of it. Like I can see why people don't like it, but at the same point, I can see why I do like it. Like, I understand, in terms of what we get from modern day games now, there's nowhere near enough combat to suffice what people are expecting. The world is almost too big and very hard to traverse, and the story is convoluted as hell. But at the same point, the reason I love it is because of how convoluted the story is, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, it's like anything, like the Metal Gear Solid games, half of them don't make a lick of sense and they're full of holes, but you go in kind of knowing what to expect, and if you enjoy that kind of game, great, and if you don't, then you don't.
It. Yeah, I went into Death Stranding thinking this is going to be batshit crazy, and it has not disappointed one single bit.
Yeah, I must admit, I'm very intrigued by the story. I haven't got the faintest idea what's going on. I know about as much as Greg does, to be honest. I know there's babies and people are dying, and some guy.
Oh, do you want to know something about the baby? Do you want to know where the babies come from?
I've had that talk.
No, this is a weirder talk. This is weirder.
I don't know that I do. I feel like it's a spoiler.
It's just going to be Hideo Kojima just like in a room on his own, just asexually producing.
This is my child.
Yeah.
All right, should we talk about one last thing quickly before we wrap this up?
You were going to say something about Pokemon
we are
as well.
Well,
Yeah, is that what this
I wanted
is?
to discuss? Yeah,
Oh, yeah, good. I don't want anything to fall in through the cracks.
No, the whole quote unquote Dexit situation, which can I just say is such a fucking ridiculous name. So, the whole argument about this is the cutting of the Pokemon from the Pokedex. Right, that is essentially the biggest thing that people are mad about.
Is it true that they cut Bulbasaur?
They cut all of the starters except for Charmander.
I don't know. I don't know. So Charmander's in it, because that. So it's a very probably one of the weaker stories. Basically, you've got a guy who's champion. So I assume he's kind of what Ash became in the first games. He is the champion, and you are friends with his younger brother, and you are both kind of going off onto your journey to become the champion. And the champion, his name's Leon, he has a Charizard, that's his Pokemon. I've heard that you get a Charmander for completing the game, but I don't know if everybody gets a Charmander or if you get a Gen 1 starter based on what you picked, because I picked a fire type. So I don't actually know whether Bulbasaur and Squirtle show up.
I was just reading. Apparently, Bulbasaur and Squirtle are in it. They're not in the standard Pokedex. They're in like the Pokedex specific for that region.
I see.
I was just looking through some of the Pokemon that have been cut. Some are weird choices, and some are fairly like meh, whatever. Like Lickitung. Lickitung, okay, whatever. Mewtwo isn't in it.
It's weird though. It's really Greninja. They're making quite a big deal about him. Or were making a big deal.
Ho-Oh isn't in it. Arceus isn't in it. Cubone, Jigglypuff.
See, the thing is though, to an extent, I get it. I get why they're not in it. So this was kind of my argument when people were kicking off at the beginning before it was released, saying, "Oh, I can't believe why they're cutting Pokemon." But I mean, you have to draw the line somewhere. So what is it going to be in 5 years' time? I mean, how many Pokemon are there at the moment if you exclude
807?
807. 807. So what is it going to be like in 2-3 years' time? However many iterations down the line, where there's thousands of them. They have to draw the line somewhere.
See, that was my initial mindset, right? I was defending it. I was defending the decision because I was like, you can get around the decision by saying that those Pokemon aren't available in that region, in the same sense that in the real world, you can't go to Edinburgh and see a wild lion because we don't have wild lions in this country. It's a very specific part of the world that they're in.
Well, at least not yet.
Not yet. But then I watched a video by Jim Sterling. And his argument, which I now see that side of as well as the side I was originally on, is that Game Freak have created this culture of, here are 3 Pokemon, pick your favorite, this is your starter. And then you catch 6 Pokemon, and the 7th one is like, okay, well, which one's going in a PC? Which one's your least favorite? And the whole slogan of "gotta catch 'em all," like they've over the years created this culture of you collect all of them, you have your favorites, that's how it is. So to cut loads of Pokemon is kind of killing what was the core message of the franchise.
Yeah, I get that to an extent. I mean, it's gonna suck if you have a all-time favorite Pokemon and they've been in the games for, like, I've always loved Magikarp, and Gyarados. I've always loved them, and they've been in every iteration since I started playing them 20 years ago. And yeah, it'd kind of suck if they weren't in the next game, because they become a favourite. But I don't know, you can't expect, things change. It is 20 years later, they can't keep them all in. It just wouldn't, I just don't think it'd work. I mean, because it's not quite as big as they said it was going to be, or I think as big as the impressions that you get of it, it already feels a little bit overwhelming having 400. So to kind of have double that, I don't know. I mean, to start with, there isn't room in the game for them. They would have to make the wild area larger or add more routes, because they just wouldn't fit.
Well, it's about people wanting to transfer their Pokemon from previous games that they've raised up as like their A team or whatever. That's what people, they're sad that their favorites can't come with them this time, which some people have been carrying the same Pokemon from, Ruby and Sapphire, original Ruby and Sapphire, or that sort of thing, or possibly even further. I know I have. I think the main issue lies in the fact that they have this exponential issue of every generation they introduce another, 100 or so Pokemon, and so they need to basically each time put aside development time for creating all those models every time they have a new sort of generation of Pokemon, in terms of, how they'll have like Black and White and Pearl and Diamond and all that. They were all the same sort of generation of inner Pokemon games, whereas Y and Omega Ruby and Sun and Moon, all of that, they were all the same sort of you know what I mean when I'm saying generation of, like, they're sort of the same models, all the same designs, all of that stuff. They need to basically, in order to keep up with the fact that they've made so many Pokemon and they're always making new ones, they need to put all of that aside. And I don't know, I've heard contrasting information on this. Apparently, they still only have 100 people working for the Pokemon Company, and that's causing manpower issues and all that. Well, I shouldn't say workforce issues. So they just don't have the development time to do it. If that's the case, my view would be that the Pokemon games are the most profitable games, one of the most profitable games out there. And they can probably afford to hire in another 50 people just to make sure all the models are up to date for every new sort of generational grouping. And even if it means that they have to be updated as different games come out and as time goes on to not delay the development cycle, that certainly makes a lot of sense to me. But then I'm coming at this from a point of view where I don't have the information that they'll have in their company. But also, I don't want to be overly apologist and just assume that they've got everyone's interests at heart. That it's possible that they've just made a decision where they just want to save money and cut out all these Pokemon, and that's just how it is. That would be very unfortunate for all the reasons you say, Ben, in terms of how we're supposed to pick our favourite little one, be it a Shuppet or a Bulbasaur, and love them forever. And then maybe they don't come with us, and that's really sad, and that kind of causes problems. I would be surprised if the next one they don't release it and say, oh, by the way, we've also programmed in another 250 or so, and the next one they do the rest. That's what I'd assume they would do. But then, hey, maybe we're wrong. Maybe they would just be like, these ones will maybe come back in the far-flung future, but for now we're just going to focus on what we're doing. I don't know.
Okay, so do you think they were maybe better off just making a new 150?
I don't agree with that, and I'll tell you why. No one, maybe I might not actually be representative in this, I suppose, but my take has always been that most of the time when they create a new collection of Pokemon, a new generation, I don't care about 2/3 of them, and most of them are just and I don't give a fuck. The last time I can remember where they made loads of new Pokemon was Black and White, and a lot of those were kind of shit.
Didn't they do a new Pokedex? Wasn't that just a new 150? Did that have any old ones in it?
Well, Black and White.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
vaguely
it did have some
remember.
old ones in it, I think.
I don't remember playing. It was a long time ago that I played them.
I mean, that game had its issues separate of that, but that was probably one of the things that rubbed me up the wrong way about it. Just in that I do like seeing old favourites in combination with new ones. And sometimes you'll see a new one and think, oh, that's a cool poison fire lizard. Thanks, Sun and Moon. I'll just catch that little chap. And that'll be it for me, maybe. But, let's be fair, Sun and Moon had a lot of good new ones. It just was a shame that those games were not good and were very hand-holdy and just, ugh. Can we just talk about Sun and Moon just not being very good?
I missed that series. I didn't grab either of them.
Don't. Just leave it. It's fine.
I got Moon, but I haven't, for some reason, actually started it yet.
Don't. Just don't. Throw it in a river. Save yourself some time. It's Sun and Moon. Well, I don't remember which fucking one I got. It's the first Pokemon game I've not completed. Genuinely, the first Pokemon game I've ever not completed because I was just so bored by it. It's so hand-holdy. They don't leave you alone. And, what they do is they don't have gyms. They have, totem Pokemon trials where you go up against these, Pokemon and there's, these really boring challenges. And it's just can you pick which one matches with this? And it's just, fuck off.
Cool.
Don't play Sun and Moon, guys. And I know you're thinking to yourself, Dan, maybe I'll play that, actually, because when I start something, I never stop. Don't. Because you will trap yourself in playing it. Don't do it. And there's great ones in there, but don't do it. Mimikyu's awesome, but don't do it.
I must admit that is part of the problem when you say, oh, you play lots of games to completion. There are games that have been absolutely terrible, but I feel like I have to finish them. So it's a double-edged sword.
Yeah.
You are right. I do get trapped in games. Yeah, can't think which, but no, I tend to agree with you in part. I think there's two sides to the coin in that you're saying that some of the new Pokemon are perhaps not quite as good as the other ones, but I think the problem is people get so comfortable with familiarity. Oh, I love my Charizard, I love my whatever, that the new ones don't get given a chance because it's, why would I get myself another, electric Pokemon when I love my Pikachu? Just see what I mean? It's almost like by including the old ones, you're not giving the new Pokemon a kind of a full chance, because I know I've done it on Sword at the moment. I've got a handful of Pokemon that have been in previous iterations that I know are good. I needed a strong water Pokemon. I have a Gyarados at level 50. Why would I bother looking for another one? Because I know it will do the job. And I don't know. I don't know what the best thing to do is, to be honest.
See, this was kind of my realization of the size of the workforce excluded. Are you maybe better off just introducing a new generation and leaving the older generations out, so that you, from a Game Freak point of view, essentially force the player's hand into, hey, you have to use this new Pokemon?
But that, as I say, that only works if the new generation is good, and even then it has its issues because people do like to pick up old favorites as well.
But you could. I mean, they have the Pokemon Bank, don't they? So
yeah, well, that's now run into its own problems, because that was the whole selling point of the Pokemon Bank, was you could take them all with you, and now you can't take them all with you.
Well, yes.
I don't think it was a good idea, but then I don't know why they did it. I don't know enough about the internal logic of what was going on there. I totally get why people are upset, but also it's not going to stop me buying it. I just know that I will maybe miss some Pokemon, but equally, I'll be happy with other ones, and that's fine with me.
One last thing I want to ask, Dan.
Yes.
How good is the Dynamax mechanic? Not very good.
That wasn't me. That was Greg.
That was me.
It's superfluous, to be completely honest. It is slightly unnecessary. So, again, I'll give you a very, very brief overview of kind of how it works. So, there is, the kind of open world that was promised. There is one open world section called the Wild area, and it has a few kind of towns that join onto it. But most of it is you go to a town and then you take a route from one place to the next, and there's kind of the tall grass with the Pokemon on the route. So it's very similar to how it has been, with the wild area kind of being added on. The Dynamax Pokemon, the giant Pokemon, I forget, there's Dynamax and Giga something or other, I don't know. You only actually use them in gym battles or in raid battles. So there's these kind of red lumps of rock dotted around the wild area, and they're called dens, and they have Pokemon inside of them that are supposed to be mega strong, and they're in their Gigantamax form, I think that's what it's called. And you can take 3 people with you and fight these Pokemon, and then you get a chance to catch them at the end. Think Pokemon Go raid battles. It's basically that. But in my experience, it's fun. It is great fun chucking a giant Pokeball and having a Pikachu the size of a house turn up. It's fun, but it's not interweaved throughout the game. It is just added to the kind of gym battles, and you always know that your opponent is going to use it on their last Pokemon, so you know when to use yours. And the gym raids, I've done every one I've come across completely on my own, because especially having it a little bit early before it came out, there was no one to play with. The servers weren't. It was awful. The internet, the online feature isn't great, if I'm honest. The slowdown is terrible. I just didn't enjoy it. So I've done them all on my own and had no issue beating them. And it just kind of feels like a tacked on, this is the gimmick for this one. You probably won't see it again. The same as what were the evolutions that you used to be able to do when you could
Mega evolutions.
Yeah, that's gone.
I know it's awful. Yeah, because they're not in Moon and Sun either.
They were actually quite cool.
I really liked Mega Evolutions. I thought they were really good fun.
I quite liked them as well, and I liked that it was from existing Pokemon, and it kind of gave them almost like a new evolution, but not one you could keep. So they weren't OP for everything. You could
Mega Aerodactyl was ridiculous.
But the Gigantamax or Dynamax or whatever it's called, I still don't know the difference. It is just a gimmick. You know that it won't. I'll be very surprised if it shows up again. It's something to do with the region that you're in. There's a special power, and it can only happen there. And yeah, it's just a gimmick.
That kind of sucks.
Yeah.
As soon as I saw it in the trailer, I just shouted no. I was so upset. I'm so annoyed that they've done this, because I honestly thought Mega Evolution was a really good idea. As Dan said, it's a great way to give a new lease of life to old Pokemon and maybe help you look at Pokemon that you didn't look at before or whatever. It was a really cool idea. I wish they were still using it. I thought it was genuinely excellent. Now, you guys haven't played Sun and Moon, so you've been saved the indignity of Z moves, which are just horrific. They're like super moves, which you can do once in a battle or whatever. and it'll just be a very long animation, and you'll just watch your Pokemon spend about 20. If you get the Fire Starter's final evolution, he pretends he's in a wrestling ring, and you get a wrestling ring appear on your fucking screen for like 5 minutes, while he's just like rustling up his hands and climbing up on these imaginary ropes, and then he jumps down and elbows a Pokemon, and then it does some damage. It gets to the point where you don't use Z moves because they take so long to happen that it wastes everyone's time. It's ridiculous.
It's with the Gigantamax thing as well. When I first saw it implemented, it doesn't make sense that you could use it anywhere, because you're wandering along with your third evolution of whatever Pokemon, and you fight a Caterpie, and then all of a sudden you're the size of a house. It just doesn't work. And the only way they could introduce it was for the raid battles or for the gym, and it does feel superfluous. It doesn't feel like it's kind of a mechanic that you get to learn, or that you kind of have any strategy behind. It's just, oh look, I've made him big now.
Okay, so do you regret buying Pokemon?
No, not at all. I thoroughly enjoyed it. I haven't quite finished it yet, but I've got the Elite Four, or whatever they're called in this, to do, and I think my Pokedex is at about 300 out of 400. And that wasn't even particularly me going out of my way to find them. That was just me swapping out and evolving them as I went along. So it's finishable. Do you know what I mean? I feel like I would actually be able to fill the Pokedex on this one. I
just realised we forgot about the whole EXP share shenanigans.
What's these?
The fact that you can't, isn't it something like you can't, before you had to physically use put the experience share on a Pokemon, and you could turn it off, but now it's an inbuilt feature that's just on all the time, so all of your Pokemon gain experience in the party.
Oh really?
Yeah, basically.
No, I liked turning it off because it was basically an easier mode, having it on. And I thought that's actually kind of a helpful way where the Pokemon game actually helps you. It's the closest we've really gotten to a hard mode, apart from in Black and White 2, where apparently there's literally a hard mode. But because having the XP share on in Y and X and Omega Ruby and all of that, it's literally an easier game. But if you turn it off, it's a bit more challenging. I liked that. But that's really unfortunate.
I haven't played Sun and Moon. I think the last ones I remember going through are X and Y, not including Let's Go Eevee and Pikachu, which we won't talk about ever.
I feel like we need to now.
Yeah, no, me too.
Oh God, they're awful. That's all you need to say. They are awful. Anyone listening, if you're thinking about it, don't buy them. They are terrible.
The graphics look nice.
They look pretty, but just get Pokemon Go. It's free and it's the same thing.
Wow.
Oh, I was going to go get Let's Go Eevee, but maybe I won't now.
Don't. There's no fighting or anything. It is just throwing Pokeballs and hoping that you catch stuff. It's terrible.
There's no battles.
I think there's a couple, but like dungeons, and you don't fight Pokemon against other Pokemon. You just throw Pokeballs and catch them.
No, not interested anymore.
It's awful. It's so bad, but it's taken me since it came out to come to terms with that and be able to tell people. I've felt very sheltered about it.
Wow.
And it was only because a friend of mine got a Switch for Christmas, which he's managed to wheedle out of his wife now. And he said, shall I buy them? And I thought back to playing them and I said, oh my God, no, please don't. Do not waste your money. They are not worth it. And maybe having Sword and Shield and actually playing a proper Pokemon game again where I'm actually battling has made me realise just how bad they were. But
yeah,
they're absolutely terrible. But I didn't realise the XP share. Having played Y, I didn't realise you could turn it off, and I feel like in my head, I didn't really notice it as a problem in this one because I thought it had been changed years ago. But as far as I know, you can't turn it off.
It used to be like an item you gave to your main Pokemon, and then they would share. I used to do it to basically if I caught a low-level Pokemon that I needed to level up quickly for a battle, I would EXP share and just leave it in the party, not even use it, and just level it up that way.
That's what I did on this one. I've had like 2 that I've used through the whole game, and then the other 4 slots have just been for me to evolve Pokemon that I've needed for the Pokedex.
Yeah, that's unfortunately how it is with EXP share.
Yeah, I don't think you can turn it off, so that's something to look forward to, Greg.
Wow, can't wait. Thanks, Dan.
It's been an episode of disappointments.
Yeah. No, I can't remember a single bit of good news we've had today, actually.
Death Stranding is very good.
If you
specifically for you.
If I've put a bad spin on Pokemon, I haven't meant to. I honestly, I'm coming to the end of it now, and I've thoroughly enjoyed the experience. It really has hit a nostalgia kind of trip for me. It does feel like playing one of the original Pokemon in like a fully realized 3D world, but I just think it's not quite what other people are going to expect of it.
Okay, Dan, don't say anything other than yes or no. Are they in the room right now? Have they got a gun on your head? It's okay if they do. Just say yes or no, and we will call the police.
There is nobody in the room. I am safe.
Sure.
I don't know. I just didn't want it to look like it. I was saying it was a bad game because I have thoroughly enjoyed it, but people are expecting this massive open world game and all of their favourites and stuff, and that's just not what it was. But I didn't go into it expecting that, which is, I think, why I've had so much fun with it.
That's fair. I mean, I wouldn't say you put a bad spin on it. I feel like you've just been truthful.
And made Greg hate it.
Yeah.
Just like with all things in life, start with your expectations low.
You just can't. You can't be disappointed then.
That's right. Very good.
All right.
Yeah, we did it, guys.
We did it. Shall we leave it there?
Yeah.
All right. Well, how was your first podcast, Dan?
Yeah, it's fun.
We did it. It's fun. Bulletin Broadcast episode 17 wrapped up.
Alrighty, well.
I've enjoyed. I mean, to be honest with you, if we weren't recording this, I'd just enjoy a chat about games with friends every week. I mean, how's that terrible?
Well, there you go.
Well, depends on the friends, right?
Alright, well, we will wrap it up then. Thank you guys for listening, and gals, I guess. We don't know.
We don't know.
We don't know.
Got no idea.
Wait, are we still going?
No, we're going to finish it now.
We finished 3 times.
This happens, Dan. You'll get used to it. Don't worry.
Yeah. You'll finish when I let you finish, Dan.
I'm hitting stop.